Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning to all of you. Indeed. I was surprised, but of course elated at the outcome of Hills and Valleys Jazz this year at Bexar. Um, the performances were extremely good. Of course, the theme of inspirational jazz with a highly flavored gospel is what Hills and Valleys is about. So we really celebrated our faith, our belief in and our own unique way of celebrating in music in Kashmir Southeast. And I think I'm extremely pleased with the outcome of Hills and Valleys. I'm happy that there were vendors and persons remain at those vending booths throughout the day. So I am certain that the experience for the vendors would have been good. And I'm just overall really happy with the second Hills and Valleys experience in Bexar.
Just move along those lines. I mean, a lot of communities are now interested. The ones that have their post-community jazz. What does it mean for Kashmir Southeast and Bexar to have its own iteration of it? I mean,
Yeah, Kashmir Southeast, everybody would know probably there are more churches there maybe per square mile than anywhere else. The last time I count, we have about 23 congregations or place you could go to worship. 23.
different colleague.
It's dominated by the Adventist denomination, but you have Church of God and you have Pentecostal and you have two Catholic, St. Benedict and the Bexar Catholic Church. Large congregations, but when you look at Mark, Labey, you have Sarat, you have Sarat Sunday Fair, you have the Geno, the Forest TSJ Church, you have Therefore, you have Odsa, you have Lakwa SDA. These are a large number of Adventist people in Kashmir Southeast. And the Pentecostals, you have the Temple of Faith. A lot of the churches, especially Protestantism, one of the changes that took place for those of us who did history was really singing in terms of how Catholicism did that part of their worship in time past, and how the reformers of religion went around writing hymns and singing hymns and bringing music of that kind into worship. So yes, we celebrate that culture, and of course, you could see the evolution of religious music being displayed in Kashmir Southeast, in having the likes of the main headline artist, Sharon Gardner, who was really spirit up, and of course he was in the realms of worship, true worship, and I'm asking persons to celebrate life and celebrating their faith by acknowledging God as their creator and what have you. So this was really beautiful. With all the other performances, we had persons on the instrumental of saxophone, the saxophones and what have you. So brilliant. Happy for all of the artists who performed. And made Hills and Valleys for 2025 what it was. I only think that it's going to grow bigger and better in time to come. And the location that is known for Hills and Valleys, yes, the Bexar playground area, one of the second minor playing field, will only become a place known for celebrating our creativity, our culture, our arts, and what have you in Kashmir Southeast.
A question. All right, that just gears a little bit to stuff.
Yes.
Controversial issue or seemingly controversy made controversial by your political rival is Kashmir Southeast is dragging into another week. You may have been made aware of this attempt at reversing, but at the same time doubling down at a recent public event. He's accusing the government that you are part of, the party that you're a member of creating, inventing period poverty. How do you respond to your political rivals seeming continued sustained condemnation of your administration's attempt to help vulnerable people, help young women and girls, something that you can cash yourself?
Yes. Thanks for the question. And it's sad that we have to continue that line of conversation. But let me speak. I think most of you are here this morning. I haven't seen the ladies, but you are men. And we are human beings and we make mistakes at times. Most of you would agree. And the only thing you do when you make a mistake is to acknowledge you've made a mistake, and then you correct yourself and you move on. You make things a lot worse when you've made a mistake and you try to cover it up or you try to double down on it. What Guy has done is really what no one should practice when they've made a mistake in life in any form. Period poverty, even some persons have said to me, that's the first time they heard the term period poverty. And that is true. But the term exists, and it is being part of one of the safety nets in dealing with poverty, especially in larger populations. Just imagine a place like Chile and if you look at the way Chile is shaped, you realize it's a thin strip of land moving all the way from Brazil going down. So you could be in one part of Chile at the end and far from Santiago and probably experiencing poverty in a different way that persons in Central Asia experience poverty and deprivation. They would not have access to certain things. So when you have a large part of population deprived of some basic things, in a larger population it will be more pronounced than in smaller population. But we do have the incidence of period poverty. So over the years, from the time I've been at the St. Lucia Social Development Fund, and I attend meetings, and among social meetings where we deal with poverty, you would have various countries making presentation and showing how they deal with poverty in their jurisdiction. And yes, period poverty has always been a discussion. Canada, the US, England, the Latin American countries, Chile, Brazil, these conversation and catch up with the Trinidad, Jamaica. It took time because, like I said, in larger population, it's more pronounced, but the population existed there. When a mother on a morning, and this morning I saw a few mothers, and there were mothers with 7 children, and I call them powerful, some of the most powerful women that I come across. And on a morning with a daughter experiencing her period, she doesn't have the money to send all of them to go to buy certain things. So she'll say, Timai paile ko jodia, kiti ese les ose my lache, I achete sapito, go and buy food instead, and not to buy, the
Metro product.
Metro. Always, it's about $32.
It's concealed.
Right? She would need to make a decision on it. Men do not deal with these things. Men do not deal with these things. Buying a pack of always as against buying bread for the rest of the children to go to school. That child would not go to school for 5 days because of period. And how it affects her life going down. Let's say if 3 times in a year it happens to her, she miss out on education in a significant way, and exponentially it affects her life, her entire life. So when the women, UN women and other women in the world raise their hand and say yes, period poverty, and has made the intervention a safety net to reduce or deal with that vulnerability, it is real and it is necessary. What the Prime Minister did, and I support, and it's so important that we recognize what the Honorable Philip JP as Prime Minister did. He used the term period poverty. I lived in a time past where women were abused, even in the open, and it seemed to be okay. Where some people believed that period should not be spoken about, and they were in quarters where they believed and espoused that the women were unclean, they ought not to cook food, they're supposed to go in a corner and lock themselves aside because society then treated them that way.
No dissonance.
You understand? This is what happened before. But in the silence of these things, it seemed to have been okay. But here comes a Prime Minister who is prepared to take it head on, but use the very term appropriately as it's called period poverty. It's a slap in the faces of those who believe that when women have the menstrual cycle, they are dirty, they are not good. They are women, they ought to stay in the corner, they ought not to be liberated. This is what Philip J. Pierre did. And I'm disappointed, very much disappointed with Guy Joseph. And like I've said elsewhere, a man who would have listened to more than 100 sermons preached in the Adventist church on period poverty. Take the three Gospels, Mark, Luke, and Matthew. The woman who had a menstrual cycle for 12 years non-stop until Christ healed her is one of those big miracles in the three Gospels. The health missionaries that come to the church, the experts who come to do AY programs in the church, the pastors who preach on it on nights of crusade, highlighting how good God was. The first experience of poverty, period poverty reduction, was done by Christ, because not only she had it medically, but the Bible said it made her poor. She lost everything. Is the pulpit of the parliament holier than that of the church? That it can be said in the church and not. Anybody can Google period poverty in the Bible. You will see what will come out. You will see Mark, Luke, and Matthew speaking about it. But all of this is because when you have chosen to, when you have been successful in being popular on statements like since when that's your role, when you have become popular by saying things like cutting the grass behind the grass, when you have been successful as a politician by using just mere words that have become popular and the rest of society has become entertained, and they grant you certified location into the halls of power, our parliament, to represent them, then you could search for another one. Well, this one happened to be at different times because our society is changing rapidly. And we will not. And for him to say, oh, why not hygiene? It's not a hygiene problem. It's a period problem. It's not about toothpaste. It's not about I'm getting there. It's not about that. It is about a problem with women alone as a gender that affects them, that doesn't affect men. That is why it is called period poverty, and it deals with dealing with that, creating our society more equal. So Guy Joseph, as far as I'm concerned, the best thing you do is to recognize that you make, and this is where I think our humanity is tested, when we make mistakes. When we make mistakes, and nobody's supposed to, I'm not suggesting that all ministers and all parliamentarians and all those who choose to be in politics must know everything that exists. I don't think Guy must know know the term period poverty. But if you hear something for the first time and you know nothing about it, you don't attack it. You can Google it, you'll find a definition. If you enter Google period poverty, you'll see it exists. And you could find many, commentators talking about it and how serious a problem it is.
It's not the Labour Party thing.
It's not a Labour Party invention. It cannot be a Labour Party invention. But what I love about, the Prime Minister in presenting his budget is that he attacked it head on, direct. Leave no room for you to think anything else. It is period poverty. Liberate our young ladies. That's what it means. It is period poverty. End it. And those who hide behind pulpits saying that women are unclean, it is period poverty. Let us deal with it. Our children will not suffer with all stigma and all issues that maybe our older generation didn't know different. For those who, promote and made our daughters feel like they were less. I grew up at a time when it was like that. I know when they had to cut a piece of cloth and wash it and hang it back on the line. Can you imagine that there was that time? I'll be 65 in August, thank God I will. But I grew at a time when that is what I saw. My sisters and them, and I'm not ashamed of what existed before, what my mom did. I was the only boy between 4 girls. I saw how it was treated. And when the young lady is about to go through, have that experience, how this is a big conversation in the house, as if it were the world is coming to an end and they call a meeting. And this thing was like, a normal part of the experience, yet they would have to be afraid. And I know it affected our society with the other abuse of our women that came with it back then. So we're moving forward. A very important safety net. And remember, it is a safety net. It is to catch, because not everybody in our society would experience it. Ideally, from the principle of social justice, would have hoped that every woman that gets that thing dealt with in the same way. No, it is not that way. Because some people do not have access to it in the way that they should.
So I'll be secondary this an issue related to this period poverty issue. The government needs to take some steps to, I guess, reduce the cost of sanitary napkins and other hygiene products that we use in the past 2 years. However, we have an issue now where, and then there's a company coming from our women now, the variety of the products that are on the shelves and the costs are actually increased to the news about what you were.
Yes.
The pack of sanitary napkins average at $10 was 20.
Yeah, I just indicated that always is almost $30 or more. Yeah.
The variety
Yeah.
It's not good. A lot of the products actually not good.
Very well, yes.
Any plans better to the men's
I think this is a very important question. I'm sure both the Minister of Commerce and through the agency responsible for standards need to speak on this, because the Bureau of Standards has its part to play, because you really cannot bring in products that are not up to standard, and in the name of it being cheaper. And if it has to become one of those items that you need to put controls on, then that is within the purview of the Minister of Commerce. But I agree with you, there lies a deeper problem. And the sad reality of it is that women would go through this and not even have a conversation about it in the past. No one would dare before come and say that pads and products for women for that reason is too expensive. Society would say, get out of there. But thank God today we can say, because it is an item in the supermarket. And if it needs to be under price control or monitor, then let it be. But it is, I think. It is under price control.
Why it's a bit concerned as to why.
Yes. Right. So it is something that the Ministry of Commerce must pay attention to and find out whether there's any price gouging or whatever it is, because through our Prime Minister, I'm sure that persons would be paying a lot more attention to it, and people would be dealing with it. So I think some people are taking advantage, which they do most times. But I think we'll continue to work with the people responsible for bringing important this and look towards having the situation ameliorated dealt with. Yes. So I thought I had to say this, but more importantly, we must be careful we do not lose the gains we've made as we move our development forward. And when an initiative like this, as simple as this, can be attacked, it's not an initiative dealing with giving concessions to hotels that's been attacked. It's not an initiative dealing with where you're providing for another part of our society. When our society is being attacked, it's always when it's going to affect people from the lowest quintile of poverty, the last 20% of our population will suffer. And these people sometimes hardly ever speak. Thank God some of you speak on their behalf, in their behalf, because you probably manage it and you can afford to go and purchase products. You are employed. And I pay attention to the people who comment. A lot of persons who speak about it belong to a different quintile. Persons who are slightly above the poverty line, maybe poor but above the poverty line, who have been managing but they can feel it. But the people who cannot speak are those who are really, really suffering, and this thing is impacting them. You may not see them on social media. You may not see them around a politician. They may be hanging out somewhere else, hustling and doing something else, and not even aware of the conversation taking place at this time. When these things are attacked, these people are the ones being attacked. And the media must not just listen to the story, but the media sometimes must launch its own protection on persons who are vulnerable as advocates of what is right, what is proper, and what is proper and what is just. Yeah. So I thought that it was in. Yes.
Yeah, money made stuff. I just wanted to know if the rumor got true that this what's this and the wire, right, will be taking your place in the next elections.
You're asking, is this?
Yes, this issue will be taken.
Yeah, well, I'm not aware of that. But I would prefer, to speak to, what is important in terms as we prepare as a Labour Party for the next election. I know why it is important that we protect the gains that we've made on behalf of vulnerable population, poor people, persons struggling. I think this is important, and the leadership of this political party, the Labour Party, is Mr. Honorable Philip J. Pierre. He's steadfast in continuing to give. I do not think we should lose sight on the fact that he highlighted in his recent rant that there's food poverty, there's visa poverty, there's education poverty, and I think it's cooking gas poverty, I think. And was suggesting why these are not. Well, I will speak to visa poverty. Visa poverty may be affecting persons above the poverty line, because persons above the poverty line do not go and look for visas. Persons below the poverty line don't go and look for visas per se. Persons way down at the bottom, or it's not a priority for some of them. They want their birth certificate, they want the ID card, they want their passport. And once they satisfy that, they'll move to the next level. But fuel poverty and food poverty is the same thing, because you need fuel to cook food. So when he spoke of food poverty and fuel poverty, again, I think he doesn't get it right. And in that category, it's really called indigent, because indigent, which is poverty or food poverty, food poor people, for which we have made a dent. At one point in time, it was almost 2-point-something%. The last I checked, 1.8% of the population thereabout are considered to be indigent, food poor. Since Mr. P has led this government, we have increased grants and contribution for persons involved in providing food. And the attempt is strategic and deliberate. So this year, for example, we have increased grants and contribution to the extent that Feed the Poor Ministry gets additional. And we have new partners. The Bexor SDA and Bexor Catholic Church has received $10,000 additionally. The Labi and Sarat SDA Church also received $10,000 to increase the food program in the constituency of Castries Southeast. But there are other entities that have received additional grants and contribution. The government invests from time to time quite a bit in terms of food vouchers to provide support to individuals. What we will not do, and the government also has maintained subsidies on basic foods, and it is universal. Universal. when you have basic food items, the ideal is to have it universal and not say that you're going to remove the subsidies and let me get to the individuals who really need to get the rice and flour cheap. In every targeting instrument or mechanism, you always have errors of inclusion and errors of omission.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister wants to ensure that any and everybody who needs flour and those basic food items can get it. That's why the subsidies are across the board. We cannot pay attention to those who could do without it and risk those who really need it miss it. And sometimes it is costing you much more money to target who needs rice and flour with concessions as against those without. You discover that it's a small percentage, and therefore the cost of creating a targeted tool is expensive. And just like one may ask, why put $250,000 in the school? Why not find out which child is it? When to go and find out which child, then you spend a targeting instrument that costing $500,000 and you still have errors in it. It's easier to go universal.
Yeah.
Mr. Chasney, Alan Chasney, the political leader, believes that we should remove subsidies on basic food items. Remove it. And go and find out who need flour at a cheap price. Find out who need rice at a cheap price and target them to give to them. That's what he believes. That will risk poor people getting food items because you will have errors where you miss targeting somebody, you target somebody wrong. There's some room for targeting, but there's sometimes you need to go universal in your approach. When the $250,000 is placed at the school, those who need it will get it. And if you happen not to be below the poverty line, but you have an incident or situation, it's also there for you. If your parents can afford, but you forgot your package at home and you have an accident at school, it's available for you. Universal approach to rights is the concept of social justice. It makes it available for who needs it so that there isn't a problem. The last point I would like to make on this, and again, Guy Joseph, it was Timothy Polio who referred to the lady who received the $50 on the preschool as a handout.
Yeah.
So here, a toddler is paying tuition, let's call it tuition, $200. And the Prime Minister made available $50 to reduce it so that the person now need to pay 75%. And in a thing, he called it a handout. But if somebody is pursuing the medical field and the tuition is $400 and $100,000 is given to be referred to as a scholarship. When the amount is small, a stigma comes to it. So baby going to preschool cannot be told that she's receiving a scholarship of $50 for tuition every month or every year, which is 25% of the tuition. But somebody going to medical school who is older would be told that they're getting a scholarship. And in the case of Timothy Polio, he called it a handout. Well, it is not only people at the lower quintile, if you want to call it handouts, are receiving handouts. A lot of well-to-do individuals are also receiving handouts, if you call it handouts. But scholarship to those who are voiceless, support to marginalized people, $50 to reduce the tuition fee for a toddler going to preschool who cannot speak for herself is not a handout. The child has a right to receive education, just like everybody else. As a matter of fact, I hope and pray the day when these children will not have to pay at all to go to school, because if those individuals at secondary school can get free education, those who, at primary school we have universal free education, then I believe babies and children who have come here and have not had to pay one, amount of tax should go to school free. So I think we need to view these things from the angle of putting people first at every time and every opportunity we have to do so. So Grateful Hills and Valleys, the issue of period poverty, tell Guy, just say, I'm sorry, and done with that period, move from there.
Right.
Yes.
That's very cute. I realized you kind of glossed over this question. But I want to know if she does actually take your seat, will you be interested in trying again? Or can she just be like?
I haven't come to a conclusion on this as to what would I do. I'll be 60 years in August of this year, and I thank God for that amount of time He has blessed me with. So whatever my family, my wife and my daughters decide and guide me on, I try to make up my own mind. But you count and God discount. So what might happen tomorrow? But as I stand here before you today, it's my intention is to continue the path that I'm on and to do the best that I can with the opportunities that will be presented to me. Yeah. Thank you.
You good? That. Oh. Yeah. That's it. Fix again. All right. So okay, as you know, Soufriere, another spectacular, well-attended activity. Mr. Lee also be partners.
Good morning. Good morning. Soufriere, the ultimate experience. And I always say, just that caption says it all. I'm particularly pleased that the organizers, Soufriere Foundation and CIMO, continue to make Soufriere proud. And every year, they bring it up a notch. I want to thank them for the effort. I know it's, putting a show like this together year after year, it's a lot of hard work. And I want to thank the committed team for ensuring that they keep that Soufriere brand and quality. And that is our target. And I'm pleased that year after year, they're achieving that target. I also want to thank St. Lucia and all our visitors who continue to come to Soufriere. I know they're having a good time, but I know they could make a decision to go elsewhere. And by coming to Soufriere, I want to thank you tremendously for the support. When I went on the grounds to speak to my vendors, they were extremely happy. And when my vendors are happy, I am happy. The Airbnb people were happy. The hoteliers were happy. Soufriere, the constituency, we are extremely grateful for having the privilege to host Soufriere and to host you. And we hope that it is something that we can do year after year. I also want to take this moment to continue inviting you to that part of paradise. Mm-hmm. Every weekend we have something there for you. Always remember we have different products, and visiting Soufriere is being at home, but also being away from the busy hustle and bustle of city life and everything else. So Soufriere is your home away from home, and we are always pleased to welcome you. I want to take this moment as well at our show. I realized we had bringing back Rebirth 7 to me was a very important statement for the people of Soufriere, because as you know, Rebirth 7 is a band, and they left, the members went all over the world, and to bring them back together and they gave this spectacular performance. I want to again thank the members, the family members for that support. We had persons who actually, visitors who came back specifically to be at the show because of Rebirth 7 being there. The young people, when I walked the ground, the young people were happy. They had their share of their performance. The seniors were happy. In general, people were happy.
Any questions? When it comes to us?
So I'm any updates on event the show a couple of weeks and then just say yes.
Continuous. Yes, what I can tell you, we had last week Tuesday and Wednesday, I met all the business associations to see how we can implement the tariff, the policy positions that Prime Minister presented in the budget to try to deal with the tariff situation. So I met with Chamber, I met with Slisba, with St. Lucia Manufacturers Association, we met with Coalition of Services, and we have to meet with at least 2 more persons. We met with the furniture sector after a long while, because they too are affected by some of the things that are happening. So for me, it's important. We went straight into implementation mode. We are dealing with the tariffs through the PR subcommittee, the ministerial subcommittee, and the technical subcommittee. The technical subcommittee, we've made some recommendations to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister made some announcements already in the budget. And last week, we've met with the various private sector bodies so that we can get into implementation mode. So that's the best we can do. The ministerial subcommittee, again, is going to meet, come Tuesday again. And the technical committee continue to work. The PR committee is doing its work, so you'll be seeing a little more public conversation.
Minister, there was issues with the we might complain about the cost, the variety, and the quality of the sanitary products that are on the shelves right now. We might understand the sanitary are supposed to be under price control, but since I think the past months the prices have skyrocketed. The average cost of sanitary napkin is $20. Really at the variety, because we understand as a woman that there's different varieties that people often reactions you would need when that time comes, that we're not getting products to fit out. So,
you're not getting products to fit your needs?
Yeah.
Oh, that sanitary napkin issue is getting to all types of... it's getting into all types of angles. Now, what I cannot tell you what variety of sanitary napkins are on, because the issue you raised there is a new issue, because it has not been brought before, that the brands and varieties that used to be there, you're saying that they are no longer on the shelves. Well, that is a little bit of a review that I'll have to do. I will have to find out. But yes, it is under price control. But you may also realize that since the announcement of the tariff, quite a few items might see a spike in price. Because when I listen to the international news, even in the U.S., some of the surveys, there was a survey of about 900 products on Amazon, and they had already gone up by 29 to 30%. So that's what we are saying, that continually you will be seeing that type of changes. So if, for example, the imported price of a product has increased, even though it's on price control, there will be there's a control mechanism to contain the increase, but you will get an increase, because if the price being purchased from overseas is higher, then that selling price on the shelf will be a bit higher.
Well, that's understood, but the issues are not coming up like said Trump would have come in. This was prior to this. This issue has been going on.
The issue of the variety of brands?
Quality, price.
No, that issue to me has not been brought here at all. So
We know.
Okay. Well, I know you are a lady that might be using the products, but I'm saying it has not been brought to the fore. What was brought to the fore was the statement made by Guy. But now you're bringing in a different dimension. So now you've brought it in. I'm going to ask my Consumer Affairs Department to do some research, and then I'll get back to you.
the pushback. Let's start with the small business brand. You started.
MSME.
Personally, that this one I will go. Yeah, so what's up with it?
You may have recalled in the debate the announcement that the government has injected some additional $3 million in addition to the $10 million we had from CDB. And in my address, I presented exactly how we are going to use that extra money. We said we are going to focus on the bakers. We are going to increase the threshold on the MSME for them from the 25 to 50. We are going to change the ratio between loan and grant to 50-50. I didn't mention that. We are targeting large bakeries, as well as some of the smaller bakeries. So in essence, we are focusing on the baking industry. We want to bring it up to a different level. So we focus on that. And the second approach was to focus on non-financial cooperatives. I reported on that. We are dealing both with the farmer cooperatives and fisher cooperatives. Again, we are giving them specific grants. They too will benefit to the limit going up to $50,000. And we are assisting them in terms of going into some business ventures so that they can improve on their revenue. That is in addition to the work we are doing with the cooperatives in terms of the solarization project, where we are bringing the operating costs down for the various cooperatives. And we also mentioned that we had a balance of about $400,000, and we are using that not for the food calling yet, but to go back to calling 1 and 2 and revisit some of the items that were declined or denied, and to see how best we can improve on some of them, and then to use that 400,000 there.
So that you are saying this year it will be targeted because unfisher can own
And non-financial cooperatives.
bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, so any other sector, what other sector will be?
No, all I'm saying is from the first and second calling, we had some applications that were denied. So we are going to look at that cohort again and pick up where we can assist them to just improve it so that some of those persons qualify.
Yes, just an update on the main office at the Ministry of Commerce due to the mold infestation. Can you update on that?
Only that it is still closed. Yeah, so we are still operating our main shop front is at our Consumer Affairs Department for the time being.
Okay, and one more question from me. Correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Is it Bois de Orange?
Bois d'Orange.
I'm new, so I'm just straight.
All right.
Yes. Is the government moving to there because as it has more space and everything, will the government be moving these offices to
Bois d'Orange? I know that maybe the person to answer that would be Minister Poyet, who's the Minister for the Public Service. So she'll tell you what government plans are in terms of which ministries or what it is government would be doing in that building.
Maybe that's all right.
Anything else? Just to say that I love you.
I have a question. In terms of the tariffs, I've been hearing people say that, why isn't the option that the government actually invest heavily into our local farmers to support the masses instead of relying on international?
To support the
masses, the public consumption, because it would be less expensive in the supermarkets, for eggs. Eggs are ridiculous.
Oh, you're saying why is the government not supporting the farmers? That's what you say?
More investment into the farmers.
Well, if you look at the program, last year's program for the farming community, the government has provided significant support to the farming community. Significant support. You had the UBEC program. And the UBEC program is water development in terms of the ocean. We had significant investment in there. You had significant investment and support provided to the banana farmers when they had their challenges. Prime Minister actually handed over checks because twice Prime Minister handed checks to my fishers in Soufriere when they got damaged last year with Hurricane Beryl. And there is a second cohort to receive some assistance from the Prime Minister. In my own constituency as well, we handed checks to 52 farmers in Fort to target the dashing industry. And when we did that, they now have sold and they exported. They made over $1 million in sales. That is support to the farmers. They're happy in Fort. Then I supported my farmers in Myers Bridge and Etanks. And they got support again, 1.5 through the COVID relief because those persons were also vendors. They received the Bellevue Cooperative in Myers Bridge also got significant support from me in terms of greenhouses, in terms of input. They got support and are still receiving support from Export St. Lucia. So the farming community has received significant support from this government. In addition to that, the subcommittee, the ministerial subcommittee that is assigned to review the tariff impact, one of the recommendations is to strengthen our support in terms of food security. And the Ministry of Agriculture is leading in that direction by putting another subcommittee together to see how we can review their own plan, because there is a plan for food security at the Ministry of Agriculture. So they have put a technical subcommittee together to review that plan so that things can be accelerated. So the government is very mindful, yes, we are doing all in our power to ensure that our people have food. But one thing the people must do, and I continue saying it, they must eat the potato when we plant it. They must stop going, They must eat the potato. You must have a little section, young ladies, in terms of how to use the dasheen and how to use the green bananas and how to use the potato. We're talking about a program for home gardening. These are all related. It's going to impact your health and the availability of the food. So the government is doing its part, but John public must do its part in terms of consuming what we grow and grow what we consume.
So can you just around those things into how much the local government is actually investing?
No, I don't have that. I don't want to take anything from the air. But I think if the Minister of Agriculture comes there, he might have great figures. But all I know is in the millions. We give them water tanks. We give them a lot of things. We gave them fertilizer galore. We've given them a lot of things. Our farmers are very happy with us. That's why they're going to stay with this government.
Yeah, but Mike, I just want to know, would they be able to actually support the masses?
Well, don't forget, that's what I'm saying. And that's why a while ago I spoke about, I just pull and say potatoes, for example, because we know potato is a food that has it's a very short crop. And that's why I mentioned that. Whereas if you plant dasheen, it has maybe 7-month period after you plant it. The green figs has a different period. But you have some food that is a lot faster. You have 6 weeks, 3 months potatoes and things like that. That's why I mentioned potato a while ago, but you're right. It is something that must happen immediately. And we are doing what we can as a government, but every household must do what they have to do quickly as well. Yeah? And when you go into the supermarket, please support the local industry. Buy local. Okay, so the next time I come, I'm going to have a little buy local thing. Here, like this. I'm going to put it up so that people start knowing what it is. Yeah, put a sample. No, but yes. But you know our logo? Please get it and put it there so that each time we have a press thing, we get some free visibility. Yeah, that's important. Yeah? Okay? Have a blessed day.
Great to my what last week was meeting, Minister, the significance of meeting. All right, I'm thinking I'm not very well.
Okay, well, last week, 1st of May has always been recognized by trade unions all over the world. So it is not an activity that only St. Lucia observes. So we had Labor Day organized by the Department of Labor in collaboration with the Employers Federation and the Trade Union Federation. We had that at the sports complex, and there the Prime Minister did address the gathering. As Minister of Labor, I addressed the gathering, and all the unions brought in solidarity messages. What was very revealing in that exercise was the pronouncements by the unions in terms of their level of satisfaction with some of the initiatives that the government has taken on their behalf. And they actually articulated union by union how they benefited from the work of the government. The fire service, they spoke about all the equipment, the replacement of the ambulances. They are awaiting the new fire trucks, and they felt that this was a positive move on the part of government. The teachers' union spoke about the pay that government has for temporary teachers. They will be getting their salaries in the month of August, so they are very pleased with that. And the nurses spoke about some nurses who will get permanency in their job now, greater job security for them, as well as the contribution government is making towards the tuition and training of nurses. And the CSA, well, we're talking about the issue of pension and the non-established government workers that will be made permanent. They have a category of workers who are always temporary. There are times they just used to renew their contract every 3 months. So these persons, the Prime Minister did announce that about 1,900 persons will benefit from that. In fact, I just pull out the information because I have to submit that to the PM, and we are noticing that the numbers are higher than 1,900. But these people will have job security, and therefore they can go to the bank for a small loan or the credit union, or even at the business places like courts, because there the people will realize that they have a secure job, and if they ask for a small loan, then they can process it for them. So there are a lot of people who will be happy seeing that the government is working in the interest of workers. As Minister with responsibility for labor, I did articulate some of the major changes that are taking place in the Department of Labor now, where we have done some promotion. We are filling in some vacancies so that the department has greater human resource capacity in order to improve their performance in the department. We are actually preparing to go to the ILO in June, where we will want the ILO to ratify 2 major conventions. We call them the fundamental conventions of the ILO. And once St. Lucia ratifies these 2 conventions, we will be either the first or second country in the Caribbean that would have ratified all the ILO conventions. And we are very pleased that ILO Convention 138, that deals with minimum age for workers. That means persons are not allowed to work below that age. So St. Lucia is going to subscribe to the minimum age for people to work. And then we have the Occupational Safety and Health Convention, where St. Lucia will be expected to adhere to occupational safety and health issues in the workplace. So once we ratify these conventions, the ILO will hold St. Lucia accountable to ensure that they adhere to these conventions in providing suitable work environment for the workers. So it was a big celebration. We spoke about the importance of AI in the workplace, because a lot of people are very concerned that with the advent of AI, many people will lose their jobs. So we are giving them the assurance that AI will basically enhance their work and give us greater deliverables and increase productivity, especially in the public service and the wider community and the private sector. So all in all, it was a good event, and the Prime Minister did did make his commitment to continue to work in the interest of workers in the country, to make things better for the ordinary man. We spoke about the minimum wage and how we want to ensure that the quality of life for the people in St. Lucia, the workers, all these are improved. And upon reflection after the session, the union leaders were nodding the efforts of the Prime Minister and the government of St. Lucia. They said this is the first time in a long time they have seen government reaching out to them, because usually it's always a tug of war between government and the unions, but this time we have collaboration. All in all, it was a good event, although it was coming at the heels of the opening of jazz. So we were a little worried that maybe St. Lucians would be so focused on jazz that they wouldn't even pay attention to Medi. However, we had quite a few persons there who attended the session.
I'm saying right now, of the CSA, that's the largest, I guess, the most representative union in St. Lucia.
As after NWU?
Yeah, they have some issues right now, internal issues where I think one sector wants to oust the president, citing a lot of improprieties on her part. Any concerns about this probably affect the, industrial environment.
Okay, as you mentioned, it's internal. And once it's internal, the government do not get involved in what's happening internally. We are hoping that if it is something that requires the attention of the Minister of Labour or as Minister of the Public Service, that I could play a role in trying to resolve any internal issues that they would need the help of the Minister. But all in all, the CSA is part of the Trade Union Federation, and if they have internal issues, the Trade Union Federation should assist them in resolving these matters.
Yeah, also the Fire Police Work Association, if further would something about suddenly Sigma, if I should tell me Thursday, I think there's an issue that is get long-standing within the organization, say to in relation to promotions, our promotions are done, and what I think said that, it's if, well, I guess the superior lives don't then you advance, and so the wanted structure, I guess, when it comes to that. So how is it that the public service is like to try and address goals for it?
Okay, I did mention that government is embarking on a major activity now under the public service, which is the reclassification of the public service. The reclassification of the public service was done in 1992. So you have a lot of areas where you appoint workers, but it does not really equate to the right skills, knowledge, abilities, and experience. So in this modern time, there are a lot of people who would apply for a job, and then they would ask you whether you have knowledge in certain areas of IT. That would not have been in the requirements for the job 40-something years ago. So now, by bringing it up to speed, we have to take all the new areas into consideration and also focus on a lot of knowledge, skills, and abilities. People thought once you have a certificate, you have a first degree, you have a master's, then you should be appointed in a particular position. But you may not have the skills, you may not have the adequate knowledge, experience, and ability to carry out the duties. So this is something that the reclassification will pay serious attention to. So in that case, we have to look at the situation with fire service, police, and borderline correctional facility. We call them the protective services, but we understood that the ILO said we must not include fire as a protective service. We have to call them an essential service. And in that case, they are categorized differently. However, with these persons in this category, we want to determine what grades they fall in, what salaries they should be paid based on the nature of the work that they do. We cannot equate them like any other public officer. So when we do the reclassification, we are going to take that into consideration. And the issue of promotion, it is one, because they are part of the protective services, you find that at borderline, in the police, and in fire, the chief or the police commissioner, they have that privilege to allow promotion of persons up to a certain grade. And anything higher than that will be done by the Public Service Commission. So I think the president of the Fires Association is questioning the promotion within the fire service, feeling that there is some level of unfairness and maybe bias or other areas that they feel is not transparent. And if they have any specific case, that will be drawn to the attention of the public service, which we could take to the commission for attention. However, the long-term plan is for us to look at how we are going to address this whole issue of promotion. Because even in the education system, principals are given that opportunity to interview a few persons they would want to teach at their schools. They are not the ones selecting, but they can recommend. And usually the commission goes with the recommendation coming from the principal, because remember, you're the one working with the person. You know what type of person, what skills, what abilities, what personalities you would want to work with. So they give you that privilege to have a say. Not that you will say, this is the person I want and you must take that person. But in the police, fire, and bodily, we have always heard little whispers about people failed, they are not promoted fairly, there is favoritism and so on. And it is once the fire service is serious about it, we may have to carry an investigation to see if what they are saying is really true. Because we want transparency, fairness in the promotion of officers. I just want to mention briefly that we had Babono Rainforest Jazz. We had taken a break last year and we came back this year, and we were privileged to have WCK and some of our local artists performing in the forest. Babono Rainforest Jazz is different, is unique, and it is a cut just for itself. We don't compete with other jazz. However, the location surrounded by the forest, it creates that unique environment. And what I find about Babono Jazz, I have been to a few of them before, and this year so far, the difference between Babono Jazz and what I notice in the other community jazz is that it has the involvement of the entire crowd. In the big jazz, you'll see some people really stand by as spectators. They listen to the music and they enjoy it. And some of them go up front stage and they are really engaging. But in Babono Jazz, because it is so cozy in a kind of a bowl, so it's like a bouillon, everybody mixing with each other. And I find that this is unique to Babono Jazz. People who are in VIP, they dance even more than those who are up front, in front of the stage. So that gives you an indication of how they feel the music and the vibration and so on. So I am very pleased. I want to take this opportunity to thank Skyride for being the host and also contributing. I want to thank Mr. Ian Sanchez. We have Dr. Tekla Fitzlewis. She played a role. We have Kelder Sebastien. These were some of the persons leading the charge for Babono Jazz for the second time. And we are hoping that next year we will be one of the biggest one too, because Babono usually attract a big crowd, but it's the venue. And I think we are already trying to identify a much larger venue so that we can have a massive crowd like everybody else, so that we can enjoy jazz. And I want to encourage everybody to, and I think coming out of the whole jazz exercise in St. Lucia, not just Babono, is the way so far is rolling out incident-free. Because a lot of people would have liked to hear a lot of rambling around that. And so far we had a very safe jazz event. Everything went well. And I wish everybody else a very safe and peaceful jazz, and allow St. Lucians to vent, exercise, sweat, and release their energy. And let us welcome foreign artists, regional artists, local artists, to give them a chance to show their talents in St. Lucia.
Yes, just one question from me. As the government has provided sanitary napkins for schools, do you think the government should provide the same sanitary napkins push for workplaces in St. Lucia?
Well, you see, the government and the Prime Minister, cabinet ministers we want to be the trendsetters. We cannot dictate to private sector and other places that you have to do that because they have their capacity and what they can afford to do. But having done that, we are expecting and we are going to encourage other agencies to do the same. And government cannot point a finger at them because they say, we are doing it. So we expect you to follow and assist your workers and be generous and supportive to your workers. This is very important because when we introduced the minimum wage, government went ahead and adjusted minimum wage before the official date for the introduction of minimum wage. Because the Prime Minister said we have to set the example. We cannot ask other employers to raise the wages of their employees, and we also have persons who are paid below the minimum wage. So having introduced the concept of poverty period, that we will want all communities, all work environment to see, small as it is, they can reach out to their employees because this is a very touching issue. And I know how women feel about it. I know how men feel about it. And the young people, we are reaching out to them so that we see that government is making that investment in ensuring that, especially for students who are going to school, school is very important for us. And we cannot afford to allow them to miss school because they cannot afford sanitary napkins to go to school. Yes.
In the issue of minimum wage, obviously you only raised it, I think, last year. Prices are going back up. Do you think it's something that should be look into?
Okay, now at the time they had asked us whether the minimum wage was up to a certain point. We did not want to say it is an interim arrangement for a year or two, and after that we will review. So we are actually looking at the cost of living, what's happening, and whether we will have to, just like government give public officers an increase in salaries. So if cost of living goes up by 6%, if your minimum wage, let's say, was $1,000, so we expect you to get at least that 6% extra to cope with the cost of living. So it is one where we are asking the minimum wage commission to advise the government on how we move forward with the minimum wage. It is not something that will stay fixed, but it is subject for review as time goes on, taking a number of factors into consideration. Yeah.
Right. And what about people who are average income? I mean, like, the prices will not be still suffering, saying up because I mean, I'm going to laugh about it, but it's true. It's still suffering the same way.
Okay, there are a number of areas where government is intervening when it comes to cost of living. Now, there is so much government can do as a government with its workers, and we have to negotiate with the private sector to do the same. So basically, we want the government is actually subsidizing a lot of basic food items and other areas in order to reduce on the cost. We just completed negotiations with public sector unions where government paid over $30 million in back pay and tax-free. Government has already increased the threshold for income tax. There are a number of areas government get in. So whereas you may not get the cash in your hand, but you are getting the relief in a number of areas that government intervenes. So there are persons where they will see government give an increase to public officers. And persons in the private sector say, but what's about us? So what we are saying is that we want to encourage the employers in the private sector to look at the trend that government is setting so they do the same for their employees. And this gives us a greater impetus to put some pressure on the private sector to say, we are doing it. Why don't you do it for your workers? Government cannot employ all workers in the country. However, we want all employers to treat their workers fairly. And in the case of the government of St. Lucia, the government of St. Lucia is the largest single employer, where on government's wage bill, we have 12,500 persons the Prime Minister has to pay every month. And before we had negotiations with the with the trade unions, it was at $43 million monthly. Government has to raise $43 million monthly to pay public officers. And since negotiation, it has moved up to $53 million. Government has to raise every month to pay its employees. So it is a real heavy burden for government to get this money to pay their employees. And it is one where when you try to trim the public service, we have over 4,000 applications in the public service, persons who are applying for employment in the public service. So do they want government to employ everybody in St. Lucia? No, it's not possible. However, whatever standard that government sets, we expect it to be across the board for everybody.
Where is the GNT on negotiations with the industry or the people?
From all indication, they are almost at the end of it because we have completed the negotiation cycle. And if there is anything to discuss on negotiation, it has to be a new cycle. So they are actually wrapping up now.
Good.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I'm saying thank you to you for coming, members of the press who were present. And I'll just say a very big thank you to CT and all those who were involved in making it a great success. It points to the possibilities in Sanitary with the right assistance from a competent team. I want to say a special thank you to the CEO, Ms. Gad, Imanas on the team. Thank you to the residents of Sanitary and the surrounding communities who participated, had a wonderful time. You will notice that we were very well behaved, so it was an incident-free activity. And it points to the bigger vision that we have for Sanitary canneries, but specifically in Sanitary. We don't believe we are deserving of anything less than the best, and we will continue to always articulate the best for Sanitary canneries. And we look forward to a lot more activities in the community over the next few months. Now, I know you're itching to ask any particular question. I'll allow you to ask one before I head back to Cabinet. If there's anything in particular that you want to ask, I'm happy to assist.
Will you come get something that needs to do with the announcement made the budget submitted by the Prime Minister? I think they want sort of just pension support into the consumer. Also,
Price index.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's what when does the chicken cook? But how this
So the truth of the matter is we are preparing the memos now for Cabinet approval. And we expect in July, as was initially indicated by the Prime Minister. It is a significant achievement by the government. This entire budget was a budget laced with a certain appreciation for the people of this country. A lot of what we want to achieve will not be able to achieve it if we don't have the commitment and the dedication of the people who are supposed to make it possible. So this is just one of the many proposals in the budget that we hope will incentivize people to work hard and contribute to the development of the state.
yeah.
Yes? Well, thank you very much. Sir.
Proposed call center, EPPO center.
Yes. Yes, Citizenship Invest St. Lucia is just simply waiting for the approval from DCA, and we expect that the construction will start before the end of the year. We've also commenced work on every single of our sporting facilities and ancillary canneries. So at the moment, the court in canneries is being renovated. So as the field, we're doing the same in ancillary as well, and the court in Jackmill just commenced recently. So we intend to proceed with our development agenda as per the promise we made to the people in 2021. If you were to just look at the manifesto and specifically ancillary canneries, you would notice that we have achieved 4 out of the 5 things that we've suggested to the community that we will achieve. We've done more than the 4 of the 5, but I'm saying in terms of what we indicated are the priorities of the community, we've achieved 4 out of 5. We intend before the elections in 2026 or whenever it's due to have done 5 out of 5, plus the other additional things that we're doing in the community. I'm very excited for ancillary canneries. We could see the difference in the community. We could feel the difference in the community. And I look forward to continue to serving them into the future. Yes.
Remember, so that we're not community.
Yes.
Within that, but well, we still seen a number of homicides in the Omni area passages.
Yes.
A triple homicide, I think.
Yes.
Please will be in there. And how are you sympathizing with the community in this area?
It's not in my constituency. My constituency starts after the Rosa Bridge. So my constituent may have suffered the loss, but insofar as where it actually took place, outside my constituency boundaries. However, we are saddened by the loss of any life, whether it is in my constituency, any other constituency. It is sad that we believe that is the way to address whatever grievance that we may have. And we are appealing. I mean, there's opportunity for young people in this country more than ever before to give consideration to that rather than a life of crime and violence.
So the jazz,
Yes.
that's ancillary.
Not before.
Go your body before.
No, not jazz. Not jazz. There was a judicial activity.
No, there have been that in ancillary as to provide not we have been definitely.
Okay, all right.
Okay. But speaking on your constituency, yes. This one I was speaking with some people in your constituency, and it's basically say everything is ancillary. Nothing for cannabis, no jazz for cannabis. What do you stand up?
I appreciate that question, and it is not a matter of everything in ancillary. There was an approach that was taken. So in the next few months, we will now move into canneries and develop that product for canneries. What we felt was necessary, because you would have remembered that there was a fish fry already in existence in ancillary. It was stopped, or it was rather destroyed under the last administration. What we tried to do is to rehabilitate that particular feature. We do intend very much to move into canneries and unveil a series of activities. Not necessarily pointing to say to you that jazz. Obviously, I would like to have jazz in every single part of my constituency, but the final decision doesn't rest with me. But I could assure the members of the people of canneries that every single activity or every single benefit for the constituency, whether it is ancillary, canneries, millet, jacma, roseau, we will do whatever we can to bring that value to them, because it's important. I mean, the vendors in ancillary over the weekend, and there were vendors from canneries there as well. Let's also remember that. They had a very good trade. And that to me is satisfying. That to me is satisfying. So yes, I agree with you. The last few activities has been the fish fry and ancillary, but we do intend to move into canneries. Canneries had its Creole pot. We are looking to revive that and do a lot more activities in canneries. So I accept that. It's not a problem at all. Yes. Thank you very much for the time. And remember, whenever we have an activity in ancillary canneries, please come and spend your hard-earned funds. Yes. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you. Yes.
So you had an exciting last few days, and I think I'll take questions and speak as necessary based on the various issues raised. So,
Well, is it true or false?
if what is true, that what?
Heritage crowd picture.
Well, I mean, I was there myself, and I trust most of you were there, and you would have seen the crowds for yourself. I have also seen the data in terms of tickets printed. I've seen data in terms of tickets scanned for entry, and I have no reason to doubt that we had over 10,000 persons at the opening of Jazz. And let's not even be bothered with these AI-generated images and whatnot. I mean, let's just enjoy what we have and the impact that it's having. But it was a fantastic opening. I think, in events of that size, there'll always be little disappointments, little operational, logistical challenges. But all in all, we had a fantastic opening. It was the largest crowd we've had for an opening of Jazz and Arts. And I think all the different stakeholders, from vendors to the public, police, and everybody else who were involved, would have been satisfied if how everything unfolded. Personally, I think it was a fantastic event, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And since then, I think every community jazz event has been beyond our expectations, every single one. Yesterday we had Soufriere Jazz, and Soufriere Jazz was bigger. We had over 5,000 patrons at Soufriere Jazz. We had Deriso, Bexor, each of them in each instance bigger than last year. Bexor started last year. We had Miku Jazz, of course, the very first event, and that one was quite special. The venue, the layout, everything about it was special. Viewfort was probably the one I enjoyed the most. I really liked Viewfort. It was all local, and they really tried their best to give it a more jazzy feel than the other events, and you really have to applaud that effort. And the turnout was very, very good in Beaufort. There were a lot of doubts as to whether they should have gone the way they were going, but they stuck to the brand that they want to create. It worked very well for them. I really enjoyed it. The music in particular was fantastic. And just really good to see local talent on display. But each community would have its own brand. Each community would define for themselves what it is they want to offer. So it's not a question of saying one is necessarily better than the other. Each one has to try to find its own branding. Soufriere has its own established brand over many years. And Beaufort is setting forth its own particular brand. Bexar, inspirational jazz. Babono, Rainforest jazz. I mean, it's right on the edge of the rainforest, a very mystic setting for the Community Jazz Festival. And we really want to encourage each community to create its own unique vibe, its own unique experience. So that has gone on very well.
This week we're going to see more of the arts components and seeking.
Yes.
My steer this week, what can still challenge expect?
Yeah. Well, Friday night, the Icon, series recognized Mrs. Teresa Hall for her outstanding contribution to, promotion of our traditional dances and our traditional wear, the Warp Duet. And from all indication and feedback we got, it was a fantastic production. And we must say hats off to the CDF for putting on that production. Today we have spoken word tonight at the National Cultural Center, and I want to encourage everyone to come out and support that event. And as you said, we move into a lot more of the arts events, and of course going on to the square for the last 3 days of the week. Tomorrow we have Pure Jazz as well as Moshi Jazz of Creole. Moshi Jazz is also a very well supported event, very, very well supported event. So we're starting to move into high gear this week as we approach the main stage events. We start off with Kingdom Night on Wednesday. Kingdom Night itself will be a very big event based on ticket sales. We can see it will be a very significant event. So I can't complain. It's been fantastic. And everything seems to be falling into place. Questions?
Yeah, Mr. Minister, I was at the grounds march, and like you said, it was, outstanding, amazing. But even before you made the announcement on stage, when you came in with the Prime Minister, I was monitoring the crowd. And the tickets had been sold out by after 10, 11, tickets had been sold out. But there were still people meeting outside wanting to come in. But what was also more notable was the local talent started the show, ended the show. And with all this, this growth, will you think that the Master Grounds or the Mindo Philip Park would outlive it? I mean, the venue is popular, it's a popular ground, but would it outlive its capacity, or will we continue in a different trend, or somehow you need to keep the community in this?
Well, I still believe that we could have taken more persons at the park. We actually stopped the sale of tickets. We stopped it. But we probably could have still taken some more people at the park, but we thought, it was okay. We should stop at that number where we are. But all the elements worked well. I mean, the biggest challenge is how do we move people out to get to their vehicles, to get to their homes. And the park and ride worked really well. We've really been able to design a traffic management plan that works for Masha, and with the support from the police and other services. Some people walk from the park to the city center where the vehicles are parked, and of course we have security in the different parking spaces, so they feel comfortable leaving their vehicles there. So there's still some space for growth, and like everything else, we will always be limited by how many venues we have available. There's something unique and distinct about having it at Masha. I mean, it is a very iconic venue for us in St. Lucia. We know its history with Carnival, hosting Carnival, until we had to stop because of the size of the trucks and whatnot enter in the field. We used to have Calypso Finals and Soca Monarch, and always see a Soca Monarch there. But of course, we always had challenges with rain, because during that time it's also the rainy season. And once Minifili Park gets rain, we know what happens. So we've moved out of that. The suburbs best for us because it's a sun-based surface. It absorbs rainfall better, and it's more easier to rehabilitate, so we can have events consecutively. But during the month of May is the dry season, and you can take the chance on Minifili Park. But it's an iconic venue, and people are comfortable going there. I think we will have to work a bit on the, entry. Some people waited too long on the lines, but we've already discussed it, and we know next year what we're going to do to redress that. We need to be able to move in thousands of persons within 1 hour. Virtually, there's a peak hour, and where we almost had 6,000-7,000 people trying to come in during that period, and we have to respond to that. And I think we have a very good idea what to do next year to make sure that problem does not recur.
Yeah, I would just look at artists.
Yeah,
A lot of preparation has gone into that, I would guess. A lot of rehearsals before they get to the show.
I mean, we've been criticized before because some of the local artists believe we allow, invited artists from outside to close the show. And this year we were very conscious. We will allow our local artists to close it. Because remember, the closing is the crescendo, that you take it up to that level and you close on that level. And we allowed our local artists to close it. So we opened, like you said, if local, and we close if local. And we've seen so much talent. I mean, I was at Deriso, and I saw at least 2 or 3 local bands, all from the south, playing. And a couple of them were there in Soufriere, Viewfort as well. And really tells us the depth of the talent. And we've seen a resurgence of the musical bands in St. Lucia. I'm talking about high quality music. And it really, really touched me. And I know my dear friend Hamilton has been saying that to me for more than a year, about putting more emphasis on the local bands. And it is true. I really saw it in Deriso in particular. Strozel to a lesser extent, but Strozel too was really, special. And Viewfort. And I think we have a lot of space, and maybe the time will come very soon where we can actually have a night of bands, to really show off what we have. But that's for down the road. But yes, the local talent. And again, I keep saying that's what the community jazz events are supposed to be about. It's a developmental tool as well, where the local talent can be discovered, can be nurtured, and for us to see how it emerges and come to the fore. And Viewfort showed to us that it can be done and can be done successfully. And we saw elements of it in all the different jazz components. Already thinking about next year, I think we need to have a more engaging discussion with the community group organizers to stress that point, that we want to see the local talent come to the fore and to give support to the local talent. And in some cases, to reduce the number of foreign headliners that they have. So that is something we're going to work on for next year.
Okay. Shift gears a little. Let's talk about Caribbean.
Okay, well, let's stay on jazz for now.
Yeah. You spoke a lot about local talent. Obviously, Monterey and Bimbaing. So each are part of the jazz. Is it possible to ever have in the lineup?
Yeah, I don't know.
What happened?
There's a process where there's a committee that puts together, the lineup. They will consider all the suggestions they get from the public, all the suggestions they get from the various persons involved in the music scene. And they will look at the artists, the history of the artists, what the artists will bring to the overall, program, and to make the final decisions. And we've been through this before about the Monterey issue. And I think it will be up to the committee now to decide how we move forward on this.
Okay, one more question. A couple of weeks back, you mentioned that for Carnival, there might be a possibility of extending it if you actually had conversations with the police and they agreed. Have you had that discussion yet?
Nothing has been finalized as yet, but we're going to continue to lobby to extend it as much as possible.
You saying on child or you want something else?
I've just following up with a question. The route, especially when it comes to town and getting back.
That's Carnival. No, let's finish with Jazz and then let's finish with
All of that, maybe I should, in terms of Wednesday, the lineup for Kingdom Night, part of the economy is, what kinds of emotions affect Kingdom Night? You've been like of whatever social media conversations happen concerning the line.
Well, I mean, we've been in touch with Maverick City, and they've assured us that they will be present, and they'll put on one of the most memorable performances for us. Basically, let me present to you what I know of the situation. We signed the band, and in signing the band, they told us who would be performing. We also got approval from them in terms of the marketing and promotional material, and it included all the members of the band that we know that we signed up for. Since then, obviously, they've had some internal changes that has taken place, and it's come to the fore. And they've clarified to us that the band will be present, they will perform, although there will be a couple of changes. That's beyond us. That's internal to the band. We have no control over it. All I can tell you is that when we sign, we know this is what we signed. When we got approval in terms of the marketing and promotion, this is what was approved. And I can only wish everybody the best, but obviously there have been a couple of internal changes, but they will be here shortly, and they promise us put on one of the most memorable gospel performances.
Come up with something, Reggie brought up concerning the big music and the rush of people trying to get into the venue or had seen it at the same time. Peter made the Ultimate Celebration, the last show. Yeah, we already sold out. I'm pretty sure you're anticipating record numbers in this space and island to help people ready to accommodate a small entry and exit of possibly 10,000 people.
Well, we had a discussion on Friday about this exactly, all the stakeholders discussing it, and they presented to me a very robust plan for crowd management, traffic management, and they have done the dry runs. We've made some changes in terms of what we're going to do on all the nights. The Friday night is always a big challenge for us because it's Rosé Friday night also takes place. And you can imagine you have thousands going to Rosé Friday night, thousands going to the event. And even for the traffic management, it really creates some challenges for us. On Saturday night, Sunday night, Wednesday night, we can use Rosé through the back road and the main road. Rosé Friday night, you're very limited in what you can do. But we have planned, and we've tried our best to make sure that we able. The first night will always be challenging, and you'll see whether the plan's really working or not. But we've done simulations, we've done different, desktop scenarios, how to respond to it. So I'm looking forward to see how it works out. But I can tell you the Wednesday night Kingdom Night will be big, Friday night will be huge, and Sunday will be huge.
There was some suggestions on water transportation. Is that safety?
Yeah. There is going to be water transportation, and I mean it's private sector led, so we're encouraging it, but it's going to happen, and of course, let's hope everything works out. I mean, like I said, the Wednesday night will first test the system. And we'll be able to make whatever adjustment in time for Friday night, which is going to be big. I mean, the lineup is, really attractive. So we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, it was one question before this, after practice.
No, well, we have Carnival. You asking something? My dear friend has asked questions. On Carnival? So you finished with Carnival? Okay, you wanted to ask Jazz?
I'm just not Jazz.
How did
Carnival?
Yeah. In relation to, I know this is not your portfolio, but still, as Deputy Prime Minister, when the government came in, there was talk of local government elections. What happened to that? Because it was something that was supposed to have been, I guess, implemented within 2 years.
Local government elections?
Yeah.
Okay.
Elections for different constituency offices and whatnot. That is, they would no longer be appointment, the different councils, They would have had elections and whatnot. What's happening?
Well, I can find out for you. That's the most I can tell you. I can find out for you. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'll find out.
That's your own.
Yeah.
Anything.
Okay, let's change gears a little bit. Let's go to Caribbean Galaxy. We'll take the place and
With what, sorry?
we'll replace them.
Replace them?
Yeah.
Why? What for? You asking me or you telling me?
House things that here goes. Yeah. We'll take the place of Caribbean Galaxy in our CIP.
I don't know. Tell me.
Okay, and
That one is not even a Google or Bunsa. There's a Beamer.
and
But do you have information that
looking for a way out of Caribbean Galaxy.
as the government in what?
Looking for a way out.
Why?
Okay.
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about.
The December cap, so
Yeah, negotiations are going on. Yeah, they're going on. I think very shortly we will make a major announcement on it. We are still negotiating with them, discussing different elements of the way forward with them.
okay, and there will be basically the recommend is for that the infrastructure finance.
Yeah, and
Anything else apart from that? It's mostly roads.
yeah, well, community infrastructure as well will be part of it. It's part of our national infrastructure program and whatnot. But we're going to continue to discuss with them the different elements. As you know, that there is a court case which makes certain claims. We started discussing them from July last year once we had signed the MOA. And as you can imagine, anybody that you want to change an agreement that they have will always want to ensure that they keep all their privileges and benefits they had in the original agreement. But a lot has happened because just after we started negotiating them, the Martinez issue came out. And everybody wanted to take a step backward and figure out exactly what's this Martinez all about and making sure you don't, create any situation. Then the Martinez case dropped by the wayside. He withdrew the case. And we started talking again, making sure we were understanding how to implement it. And then bang, the leader of the opposition comes with his own case now, making certain allegations, whatnot. So at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we are in keeping with national laws. And of course, the developer has to make sure that they're not losing privileges and benefits that they had. And we making sure we can secure the benefits of the country. And we are having discussions along those lines.
The first hearing for this case is supposed to be held this month, right?
Well, the case was supposed to have been heard on May 2nd, and the opposition asked for an extension of time. So it will now be heard on July 15th, which is the middle of the Carnival season.
Are there any new players, any new investors, I guess, that has come in or have approached the government since all of this?
Yeah, we do have. But the point is, we need to make sure we clear up this hurdle before we move forward. St. Lucia is a trending destination, not just for tourism, but for investment. And very soon we'll be making some big announcements as well in terms of investment in the country. Major announcements will be made. So we are trending. And in terms of CIP, there is intense interest in St. Lucia. But of course, again, we want to make sure that, we clear certain hurdles. And this court case is one.
Okay, well, I had asked that because I previously you have said on previous occasions that I guess since with all the cloud hanging over our program, it did cause a little bit, I guess, of
that's the point I'm making.
confidence as well.
Because when you're an investor and you win all of a sudden the place you want to put millions of dollars in, the opposition is going to court saying this is illegal and this is saying, so they too have to ask their lawyers, is there anything illegal about St. Lucia? They will come back to the table to you and tell you, look, yeah, we want to invest in St. Lucia, but is there any validity in what they're saying? And you have to explain to them, and then you're going to go to court. And I mean, the first thing the leader of the opposition is asking for is for the court to stop the program, impose an injunction, and then head a full case later on. But can you imagine if the court should say, you know what, let's put an injunction on St. Lucia, stop everything, and let's say the case maybe in a whole year's time, whatnot. You can imagine what will happen. So you have to engage the investors and assure them, yes, this is the case, and this is what you're doing. I mean, it is calculated to be mischievous and malicious. But, St. Lucia is trending.
The Prime Minister right now is going to speak with the U.S.
State as well, leading the OECS delegation. Is this one of the things that will be discussed with the U.S. State Department?
What's that?
Well,
The CIP?
CIP
We
and,
speak to the U.S. State Department all the time. You know, all the time. We have an excellent relationship with them. The U.S. had outlined what their 6 principles are, and we've achieved all of the principles. There's a constant dialogue between the different countries on this, and we're going to continue to speak to the U.S. St. Lucia is in a very safe space when it comes to the management and function of the CIP, despite all the noise that you hear, despite all the noise. You know, sometimes in life you have to learn to just compartmentalize and avoid all the noise and focus on the big picture. St. Lucia is in a very good space. And as soon as Jazz ends in June, we will come to Parliament to table the annual report, table the audit that was done of the functioning of the organization. We're going to make some changes to the legislation to make the CIP even more relevant and to take it to another level of development. And I'm sure when we do that, they will file another case.
Okay. There's 6 St. not on the yellow list anymore.
There was never a list from what we were told by the U.S.
Secrets Hotel is supposed to be opening next
1st of
month.
June.
Okay. How many, I guess, rooms? I know we've had...
It is almost 350 rooms, but very soon you'll be getting an invitation. But at the right time, the right people will invite you. We'll take you around to see some of the projects that are ongoing right now. Again, let's get Jazz out of the way, and before Carnival starts full steam. And because there's also this petition going around from one PMAD and, you know, who wants it stopped and whatnot. Even that too, we will take you to come. I think some of you were there recently to see what the work that was being done. So we will take you to, and make sure that you can see for yourselves what's happening. And like I said, don't let the noise distract you, you know. There's a lot happening. I mean, when people try to convince me that tourism is in decline and on the brink of collapse in the country, and investment is about to collapse in the country, and people are scared to leave their homes to go anywhere. I mean, if you ever had any doubt in your mind that people were scared to leave their homes to go anywhere, the last few days, whether it's in the communities or at Mindofele Park, showed to you, you know, the fallacy of that.
Staying on
I
hotel.
was in Vieux-Fort and I was very safe in Vieux-Fort, felt very safe in Vieux-Fort, and enjoyed Vieux-Fort.
Just like colleagues brought up hotels, this hotel at Point Seraphim, what's the status of it?
Well, very soon you'll see some work starting there. The developer, they went through some issues, and they are sorting it out to resume the works. Again, beyond us, developer, contractor have their issues that, you know, we as a government, we cannot get involved in. But I think they've resolved their issues and they're going to move on with the project. But that's a private issue between, you know, the parties that were involved.
Let me ask you the hardest political question you'll get today. Let me get a backstory. So the founding father of the UWP, he would have celebrated his 100th birthday last week. Mm-hmm. The next day, his widow says publicly that she was not included, not his widow, his daughter, I beg your pardon, revealed that her family was not contacted, was not invited to participate or even informed that the opposition would have held some sort of celebration in his honor. Just as an observer, what do you make of how that has played out?
I mean, again, I think I was asked a question last week or so about it. I think my good friend Hamilton asked me about it. I think it really exposes the hypocrisy of all that goes on in the politics of the opposition party. I mean, how could you, in all sincerity, how can you genuinely convince anybody in St. Lucia that you care about Sir John and his memory and that you want to hold this national recognition of him on the occasion of his, what would have been his 100th birthday, but not invite the family and not even inform them? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. First of all, when you were in government, you never recognized him. You never had any event to recognize him. And then now, conveniently, because what's the slogan? Come back home, telling all the Europeans to come back home. I think it's already acknowledged, and I think the daughter of Sir John made it clear that the leadership of the United Workers' Party is estranged from the ideals and the vision of Sir John. Now, I don't want to get involved in vision of Sir John or ideals. As a young student leader, youth leader, I was very critical of a lot of things under Sir John in terms of the social development of this country. But of course, you have to respect him for the contribution he made as a statesman, as a leader of our country. He made an outstanding contribution, despite my own personal, disagreement with some of his philosophical approaches. But if he's the leader of your party and he inspires you every day, we are inspired by Sir George Charles. We are. And there's no doubt in our mind where we get our philosophical and ideological compass from. And whereas we live in a more modern time and we have to modernize and make more relevant his thoughts on social, economic, and political development, but he still is our North Star in many ways. So how can you speak of, Sir John and approach it with such disrespect for the family? But that's the problem of United Workers' Party to resolve. However, though, I think at a national level, we must be able to reach a point in this country where across party lines, we can establish who are the leaders we pay homage to annually. Sir John, George Charles, George Mallet, and many of the others, and to really pay homage to them across party lines because of the contribution they would have made. And I think that's a bigger issue we need to face in this country. So they may choose to disrespect Sir John's family, but for us, he should be Sir John that we pay respect to, and the relevant date on which we do it. Is it on his birthday? Is it on the day he became a leader of the country? I don't know. These are questions that have to be decided at a national level.
Speaking of which, do you remember who was Prime Minister when that statue was erected in Constitution Park? The bust of Sir John in Constitution Park?
I think it was Kenny Anthony who was Prime Minister there. And what I'm saying there is something that Kenny Anthony, who was Prime Minister, thought very strongly about, that we had to reach that place in our country. And it was, erected by Kenny Anthony.
The Labour Party.
Yeah, and a Labour Party government at that. So, it is right. When I saw even this morning the posting that the inspiration between the jazz.
I was going there. Is the opposition leader, in your opinion, overstating his role in the jazz festival?
Ordinarily, I would just ignore the leader of the opposition. Seriously. You cannot be... There's something in St. Lucia we call sahot. You can't be so shameless that you claim you started the jazz festival. You're the visionary behind it. You're the inspiration behind it, which I doubt his historical account is correct in the first place. And then decide when you were Prime Minister, you stopped it. And you openly said that jazz festival is dead. It's no more. And then today, St. Lucians are demonstrating more than ever their ownership of the St. Lucia Jazz and Arts Festival, their ownership of it. They're showing it in communities. They're showing it at the national level. You're feeling the vibe in the country. And this is even bigger than us now. We are the persons managing the process, but there's an energy out there that's even bigger than us. And then you feel it and you say, well, you know what? I'm the one behind all of this. How could you ever be the one behind it? You killed it. Well, you tried to kill it. And we had to resuscitate it, and it's now, showing all the energy and potential that it has. And then you're honestly going to post that you the person behind it, you the inspiration behind it, you the visionary behind it. Let me tell you, either you're delusional, you're plainly dishonest, or something is wrong with all of St. Lucia. I don't know how, honestly, but think about it. But why would you first want to recognize Sir John and not invite his family and involve them? And then now, the same person who would try to kill and destroy the jazz festival, say all what you all seen around the island, I'm the visionary behind it. I'm the inspiration for it. Something is wrong somewhere. Maybe we're in an alternate reality right now. Seriously, I don't know. Maybe somebody will wake me up tomorrow.
Lastly, Minister. So, you're being accused, your administration is being accused of just dishing out tens of thousands of complimentary tickets to packed jazz venues. What's the role of how is that managed? Tell me about that. How does one get a complimentary ticket, and how does the government offset?
Well,
I think there are people in this room.
Well, I hope I can get some complimentary tickets today, but I know I need to go and probably get some bought somehow. But the truth is, in all events, you do give out complimentary tickets. Let's not pretend that's not happening. And any one of us involved in events will tell you, you first need to give sponsors tickets. A sponsor would give you, say, $20,000. You agree to give them maybe 50 general entry, maybe 5 VIP as part of the sponsorship package. And if you just assume you have 20 sponsors, you give each of them 50 general for their promotional purposes, which promotes the festival for you, for their own staff and their own, directors, whatnot. That's 1,000 already. And then you have some of the stakeholders that work with you. You need to give a couple. You give to them 5, 10, whatever. The media gets their fair share. It may be 2 invites per station. And at the end of the day,
Season pass.
Maybe some get season pass. Some don't want to go to jazz and whatnot, so they give it out to other people. So at the end of the day, you do give out some complimentary tickets. And as parliamentarians, of course, we will want some tickets.
For it costs.
No, it's not for it. It happens whether it's in a carnival band, whether it's a calypso show. And of course, the bigger the event, the more attractive the event, the greater the demands. I can tell you my constituents have overwhelmed me with demands for tickets. And when sometimes some people ask me for tickets, I have to remind them my first priority is to my constituents, not even family or friends, but my constituents. And so people do ask for tickets. But I can tell you, I've seen the data, and there is nowhere anyone can claim that the numbers we saw there had anything to do with complimentary tickets. I can tell you that for a fact. And in fact, when some people have asked me for complimentary tickets, I said, look, they are printing to sell. We can't stop printing to sell to print comps. We're not going to do that. So we printing to sell. So everybody who wants comps will have to wait until last minute. When sales have stopped. As long as there are sales, they have to print to sell. And that's our first priority. So it has nothing to do with complimentary tickets. But yes, you do give complimentary tickets. There are many people who are disappointed with us. We've not given them complimentary tickets, whatnot. So, yeah.
I hope you two
Check Jerry and Hamilton for. I think they have your package. Yeah.
the opposition MPs, they sometimes utilize their share of CP resources. Are the jazz allocations, are there some allocations for opposition MPs who might also check on their constituents?
Well, let me say, there's some things you probably just don't talk about in public at all. But the thing about it, and I must say that, there are MPs. Of course, we know the history that the last government stopped the jazz festival and what they tried to do. But there's some members of the party, and some of them are candidates. I would love to hear their views on the jazz festival, especially now that the leader said he's the inspiration and the visionary behind it all. I would love to hear them. Are you all supportive of this? Are you all going to take this away from the people of Sanitary? If at all you should be elected to be the next government, are you going to take away the community jazz events? Are you going to take away, the Jazz and Arts Festival? Are you going to take it away? And put that down on the table. You've been promising all kinds of things. Make a clear statement and be bold and brave and say, look, we don't believe it is good for the country. We believe it's a waste of money. We will not do it again. And just say it and let you be judged by, what you will stand for. And I think they should. But I will not say which ones have been asking for tickets and got tickets. That's a little private.
Minister, in connection with festivals in general and the Carnival and the jazz atmosphere, we see that Carnival, for example, imports a lot of foreigners, especially for the fringe events. Now we see that the fringe events surrounding jazz festival is growing, looking at the numbers. Is there going to be a deliberate attempt to make sure that we use those things and create a bridge so that we could have what he wanted to achieve in terms of a summer festival right through the months? So, for example, from the months of May, where the cruise ship season kind of dies down, flowing all the way up until into our emancipation, I guess. Do you see there any way how we could create the linkages or the opportunities for those things to happen?
Well, I think we're going to continue to grow the festivals. The difference between then and now, there was some obscure idea that you could have had a summer of festivals where you have a number of foreign festivals that would be held within a 2-3 month period, and that it would attract persons from all over. We didn't think that was feasible. We didn't think it was organic. It was not something that came out of the people in a sense. There's a difference between having a rhythm and blues festival, whatever, in October, and having Creole Heritage Month. To us, Creole Heritage Month is organic. It's part of our identity, who we are. Let's take that and build on it. Emancipation, the liberation of black people from slavery and what it means historically. How can we build on that? The La Rose, the La Margaret, how we can build on that. So we have a St. Lucian-ness that is driving what we're doing and building on it, as again, just importing a number of festivals in names and believing we can put it on the people. And remember, when they used to have those festivals, they used to give complimentary tickets and nobody used to take them, huh? At least now people want complimentary tickets and they attend there. In those days, people were getting complimentary and they were still not attending because they were not linked to the people. They had no connectedness with the people. So you're right, we want the summer to be a summer of St. Lucian-ness and celebration of who we are as a people, and that becoming itself an attraction for visitors to attend. But it's also part of defining who we are as a people. The La Rose, the La Margaret, a ballet competition, a solo competition, emancipation, Creole heritage, things that are St. Lucian that we can take to that level.
Last question. Okay. Let's go to the sarcasm seaweed on the western side of our beaches. How is that really affecting the hotels within and out? We have talk with you on it because we know it's a problem on especially the VG beach going all up to Rendezvous.
No, all the way down to Soufriere. How many of you were in Soufriere yesterday would have seen all the way down. We are going to have a discussion at Cabinet about it. And the Prime Minister, once he comes in, we will see how we can assist. It is a worry. We've never had it that bad on that side of the island. Obviously, the currents might have shifted, whatnot. But we're going to do some work and see how we can address that.
That's it.
Thank you very much. See you at Jazz. See you at Kingdom Night.